Good morning, and welcome to this episode of Weir Wednesday, a series where we take a closer look at some of the works in the Samuel E. Weir collection. My name is Abigail Earle, and I'm the Visitor Services Attendant this summer at RiverBrink Art Museum. The piece we are going to be looking at today is a self-portrait by the French artist Marie Laurencin. This lithograph was created in 1927 and purchased by Sam Weir in 1931 after he saw it in an exhibition at the Art Gallery of Toronto, known today as the Art Gallery of Ontario. It was printed and distributed by the Weir Gallery in New York, which was known for printing the work of emerging modernist artists during the early 20th century. Despite being one of Weir's early purchases, this self-portrait was not cataloged in the Weir collection until 2005. Shelved unframed in the library, it was only rediscovered 20 years after Sam Weir's passing. Recently, it has been prominently featured at RiverBrink as part of the museum's Adopt an Artwork program, which allows members to support the art museum's permanent collection and establish a unique connection with a work of art. This is the only work by Marie Laurencin in the Sam Weir connection. The work on paper by Laurencin is a black and white portrait depicting the image of a young woman who has been identified as the artist herself in a fashionable 1920s style with a brimmed hat, short hair, and a scooped neckline. The model is positioned off-center and is looking out of the image to the left. Around the top and sides, the figure becomes a part of the background as her hat and arm are blended into the dark color behind her. Marie Laurencin created many self-portraits throughout her career and frequently inserted her own likeness into her other paintings. This work is different from many of her other works as it is in black and white, and most of Laurencin's work was rendered in light blues, pinks, and grays. She was known and sometimes criticized for her delicate feminine style and color palette. The artist's signature, her full name, can be seen in the bottom right corner of the lithograph in faint cursive lettering. Marie Laurencin was often mischaracterized by her peers and contemporaries in terms of her art and identity. Born in 1883, Marie Laurencin was the daughter of Alfred Toulet and Pauline Laurencin. She died in Paris in 1956 after living there for nearly all her life. Her mother, Pauline, was an unmarried single mother who was able to send her daughter to porcelain painting schools in Paris and Sèvres through her work as a seamstress. Porcelain painting had been a common career path for bourgeois artists in France since the mid-1700s. The French painter Pierre-Auguste Renoir also began his career as a porcelain painter at the manufacturer Lévy Frères before becoming an impressionist painter. Laurencin learned to paint on porcelain in this traditional environment, but later sought to break out of it when she entered the Académie Humbert in Paris in 1905. It was at this art school that Laurencin was introduced to the Paris avant-garde movement in its infancy, and where she met Pablo Picasso and Guillaume Apollinaire in 1907, two of the most prominent modernist artists in France at the time. It was difficult for Laurencin to be taken seriously as a female artist in these male-dominated spaces, and she was allegedly harassed and abused by her peers and colleagues at school, as well as by Apollinaire, who she was rumored to be having a romantic affair with. She has frequently been reduced to the role of Apollinaire's muse, which was a label often given to women and female artists during the 20th century. However, Laurencin was a successful artist in her own right and did not allow herself to be restricted by the labels and views of the men around her. In her work, Marie Laurencin often played with traditional gender roles and sexuality through the composition of her portraits. In her 1908 painting titled Les Invités, in English, The Guests, Laurencin creates a family-style portrait featuring several prominent Parisian artists, including herself, Picasso, Apollinaire, and Fernand Olivier. The art historian Elizabeth Louise Kahn argues that by positioning herself in a standing position above the other figures in the scene, she is taking on the role of the patriarch and the head of the group. The title of the piece, The Guests, is another method of reclaiming control of her own narrative, as it suggests she is bringing these artists into her space and her canvas. Marie Laurencin's way of arranging the figures on her canvas allows her to reclaim autonomy and authority within the male-dominated space of Picasso's art circle and the Paris art scene. Later in her career, Laurencin would focus exclusively on painting women, and her work became almost devoid of men completely. However, it is only recently that her work has been viewed through a queer lens in order to uncover the sapphic themes hidden within her paintings. Marie Laurencin was known to have had relationships with both men and women during her life, and was involved in lesbian literary and artistic circles such as Natalie Clifford Barney's Amazon Salon. She's associated with other famous queer women of the time, including Gertrude Stein, who was an early purchaser of her work, and Berenice Abbott, who photographed many important queer women in history. In a new exhibition at the Barnes titled Sapphic Paris, curators Simonetta Fratelli and Cindy Kang have attempted to reconstruct Laurencin's identity as a queer woman who existed within two spheres of Parisian culture, the masculine art scene and lesbian salon culture. This exhibition focuses on Laurencin's signature style, which was developed during the 1920s as she moved away from Cubism and towards her own unique aesthetic. In this double portrait from 1919, Marie Laurencin depicts herself and her lover, the fashion designer Nicole Groult, in shades of blues, grays, pinks, and whites. The careful positioning of the two women in this painting could be viewed as romantic or platonic, depending on the viewer. Many of Laurencin's paintings were framed in this way in order to protect and hide her identity from those outside of queer circles. However, she included subtle clues in her work so that those closest to her could understand the sapphic themes of her work. One of these hidden symbols in this work is the dove, which was a symbol of love, used in Laurencin's and Groult's love letters. One of the figures is also depicted in a more ambiguous style, which was also typical of her work from this period. Laurencin experimented with ambiguous models in her paintings despite her overtly feminine style of bows and frills. Many of her paintings from this period depict women in different styles of dress, usually in the forest and posed with animals. Kang describes these work as an alternative vision of modernism and goes on to say it's almost like a radical utopia, a world of women, for women, by women. It is a way of imagining a world where she, as a queer woman, could belong. During her time as a working artist, Marie Laurencin was well known and highly successful. The French visual arts magazine Vue named her one of the three most important women in Paris in an edition from 1930. However, her reputation and artistic skill were often questioned and mocked when she was unable to defend herself. When Laurencin was exiled to Spain during the First World War because of her then husband's German background, male avant-garde artists such as Francis Picabia and Max Ernst attempted to undermine the legacy she had left behind by creating a series of portraits which both objectified and ridiculed her publicly. Following Laurencin's return to Paris in 1921 after her divorce, she was able to regain her status as a commercially successful artist and restore her reputation. Similarly, after her death in 1956, Laurencin's body of work was mostly disregarded by scholars for not being feminist enough. Many claimed that she upheld the patriarchal values of the time because of her feminine style and association with male artists such as Picasso and Apollinaire. Feminist scholars of the 1980s attempted to give her more credit by acknowledging her own career as an artist rather than positioning her as a muse for the great male artists of the time, but she again remained overlooked because of her feminine aesthetic. In 1983, a museum dedicated to Marie Laurencin was established in Tokyo by the collector Masahiro Takano and is the largest collection of her work in the world. Today, Marie Laurencin is once again gaining recognition after an exhibition of her works was held at the Marmottet Monet Museum in Paris in 2011. The latest Laurencin exhibition, Sapphic Paris, was available at the Barnes Collection in Philadelphia from October 2023 to January 2024, and a version of it can now be seen at the Columbus Museum of Art in Ohio until August 14th. Marie Laurencin's self-portrait is currently on display at RiverBrink as part of the ongoing Adopt an Artwork exhibition and can be seen in the basement by the entrance to the library. Thank you for watching this episode of Weir Wednesday. The Weir collection is available to see in person at RiverBrink Art Museum in Queenston this summer from Tuesday to Sunday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.